I just want to return to this video that Veritas48 made a few days ago that I've commented on already. And he's talking about what would happen if he discovered that the historical Jesus never existed. And he said something that, I can't remember the exact words, I'm sorry about that, but he said something to the effect that his whole faith would be kind of broken. And what would he say to the Christian community? He said something like, Christendom, we have a problem. He was kind of joking, but I think there's a core of truth in that. And he was certainly, assuming he was expressing what he truly feels, he certainly seemed to consider that a crisis. I think it's really interesting now. I suppose what's been going through my mind since is how difficult it would be for me to have that experience. And I suppose I'm coming at this really thinking about something the author J.G Ballard, he's a science fiction author who wrote Empire of the Sun and a whole bunch of other great stories. He said a few years ago in a newspaper article, he was saying that, and he was a secularist, an atheist, and he said that one of the things he regrets, and I don't know if he meant this seriously, is that because of his atheism, because of his lack of religious indoctrination, he'll never feel the pleasures of heresy, he said. He'll never feel the pleasures of heresy. And I suppose I was just struck by that and reminded of that with what Veritas48 was saying about the effects, the psychological effects, I suppose, but the social and political effects as well, of religious belief and religious indoctrination, if you like, or some kind of process by which you attach yourself really firmly to a set of ideas, to the extent that if those ideas were proved wrong, all kinds of things would happen. Because it seems to me that if you are an atheist like myself, or J.G. Ballard, or a lot of us here on YouTube, then there are various things which we are very unlikely to experience. Well, I'm guessing that most of us won't have anything like that crisis of faith which Veritas48 seemed to be suggesting would have happened to him if Jesus didn't exist, or that seems to be such a part of religious faith generally. Lots of very well-known theologians or members of faith communities seem to go through crises of faith of that kind quite a lot, and it's always regarded as a good thing when they come out the other end of it not having lost their faith. But that's kind of beside the point, really. But that idea of a crisis of faith, of facing chapel perilous and coming out of it with your faith intact, seems to be a really key part of lots of faith traditions, actually. I suppose the most recent example I can think of is Mother Teresa of Calcutta, who, whatever you think about her, she spent a large part of her life seriously doubting the existence of God, even though she was a nun and a paragon of religious virtue, as people say. And yet her life, for that part of her life, seemed to be one long crisis of faith, which she never admitted. She never went public with it. It wasn't discovered until after she was dead. So it just seems to be part of that. So again, that's something that myself, as a non-believer, as a secularist, as a sceptic, will never have. I come at the world assuming that faith isn't part of my mindset, and so the crisis of faith is something I'll never meet, really. In fact, I guess the closest to it would be something like finding out there's no Santa Claus when you're 5 or 6, and to be honest, I can't even remember that. So that thing just doesn't occur, really. So in addition to what J.G. Ballard was talking about, the pleasures of heresy, and I do like the idea of that, the idea that you can, because again, that's something I'll never feel. I mean, there are things you're not supposed to say. There are politically incorrect positions that you perhaps shouldn't adopt. There are kind of scientific heresies, which are called heresies, that you can kind of commit, but they're not the same thing. They don't attack the fundamental tenets of your existence. They don't get you at that level. Don't get you where you live, really. So I can't think of any equivalent to the thing that Veritas48 talks about in that video, of a complete trust and a complete reliance on a set of ideas which are very unstable and could actually be whipped away relatively easily. Yeah, it's one of those red pill, blue pill moments, like in the Matrix, isn't it? I mean, most of us just never meet red pill, blue pill moments. We never have to have the opportunity to feel what it would be like to have the foundations taken away from us and seeing what the world is like without that grounding on some kind of hard, firm belief. I quite envy it in some ways. I suppose I'm just trying to think speculatively. What would need to happen? What could happen to me to allow that? Apart from Morpheus coming in the room and holding 2 pills out. What would have to happen for me to discover that everything I know is wrong? I don't know. I'll have a think about that. Anyway, I'd love to find out if there was anything that could happen. Other than just the routine stuff of life. If I found my wife was cheating on me, or I found out I was adopted. Those kind of things I can imagine happening. But something even more fundamental than that. What would need to happen to discover that everything I know is wrong? And finding out there is a God, doesn't count. If I found out there was a God, that wouldn't count, because as I've mentioned in previous videos, I start from a position of methodological naturalism, which means that everything is natural, no matter how weird and fantastic and how destructive of current knowledge it is. So if I was to find out there was a God and how it had been created, it would be unsettling for sure, but it wouldn't change me into a believer, and it wouldn't alter my approach to the world to one of supernaturalism. It would simply bring a different understanding of what the world is. So I can't imagine what would have to happen for me to change everything. But I'd love to find out.